Thanks, Candace. I'm Gail Paul, and I'm going to walk you through today's content. As you know, leading leaders is tricky. Leading anybody is tricky, but especially leaders, right? Because they've got tougher roles. They've got more complex roles. They've got more complex things that they're dealing with. But they still need guidance from you if you're leading them. They still need help. They still need guidance and expertise in terms of what's important for them to do as a leader. So we're going to cover these items today in the agenda that you see here. We're going to talk about your role a little bit and why it's tougher than most. Then we're going to dive into some key competencies that really help us understand what to be looking for and what success looks like. Then we're going to talk about how to actually prepare for coaching your leaders. That's when we're going to go over that one-page coaching prep form. And we're going to walk through the process a little bit as well. So here we go. So as you can see, a lot of people get stressed out by leading other people, right? It's not an easy job. And we need help with it. We need to be able to lean on each other. And unfortunately, a lot of middle managers don't feel like they get the help or support that they need, as you can see by this very stressed out illustration here. And in addition to that, 79% of middle managers say they're at risk of burnout from the stress of managing people. I don't know about you, but when I was given the job of leading leaders or leading in general, I didn't get the manual, right? They didn't hand me a book that said, here's everything you need to know, right? I had to figure it out on my own. But we can do better than that, can't we? We can actually help our first line leaders and our other leaders figure out the best way to lead, and we can help them find success. So that's what this mini workshop's all about. So what makes leading leaders different and particularly complex and difficult? Well, number one, there's a ripple effect, right? You're leading someone individually who is also leading a team. And they may be leading leaders depending on where you are in the organization. So how you affect that individual has ripple effects beyond just you and that other person. Also, that other person has a more advanced skill set generally. If they're a leader, they've got to do strategy planning. They've got to be business savvy. They've got to know how to manage others and lead others. They're spending time coaching and guiding too. So these are advanced skills that they have to master, and you need to help them master those skills. You also, as a leader of leaders, spend most of your time, or perhaps should spend most of your time, in the coaching mode, right? If you were managing people, you would be, just taking care of deadlines and to-dos and things like that. But coaching is a very nuanced skill, and it's not easy to perfect. And finally, everyone's watching you. You're on stage, whether you know it or not. And your coaching style will either be taken to heart as an example to follow or potentially something to avoid. So these aspects make your job a little tricky, for sure. So we're going to talk about accountability and ownership in your role, right? That's really, really critical. Accountability is simply showing the employee where they are versus where they need to be. And you have to be careful that you don't become the owner of their failure or successes, right? All you're doing is holding up a mirror to them so they can make decisions based in reality. But don't get caught up in their problem solving. You've got enough of your own problems. Your role instead is to build that confidence and capability. And that requires a careful balance between providing guidance and allowing that employee to figure it out themselves. They've got to exercise their own leadership muscles. It's tempting, especially if you're high dominance, like I am, to jump in and try and fix things, roll up your sleeve and, help them out. But the help you provide should consist of tools and information that help them make the proper adjustments and decisions, right? That's the only way that they consistently get better and know what to do in situations where you can't always be there. Also help them recognize their strengths. Some people don't know what those are necessarily. And it's up to you to, again, hold up that mirror to the good things as well. You want to build on those strengths, build that confidence. It's always better to build on strengths than to try to remediate a weakness. None of us is ever going to get great at our weaknesses, so we don't want to focus there. Additionally, as we talked about, you're being watched, right? So you've got to model the right behavior. Our actions always speak louder than words, and our reports are watching us to see how they should behave, to glean a sense of the culture of the organization. And the cool thing is you get to help create that culture, right? You're a leader. What you do, the values you hold, they're going to affect the culture. So get good at those leadership competencies yourself so that you can follow consistent good practices and set the right tone. So one of the things that's so critical in leading leaders and leading anybody really is taking the time to participate in your direct reports activities. You want to make sure that that is an integral part of your day-to-day. So, go to their staff meetings. Ask to participate in an occasional one-on-one to see how they do those. Participate in high-risk, high-value meetings that your leader is in charge of, right? How do they behave in that situation? How effective are they? And that way you can take those observations, make note of them, and use them to your direct report leaders' benefit when you do coach them. And this goes without saying, but never bypass your direct reports to get the assistance of one of their team members. That is a surefire way to lose all trust. However, you do want to reach out to your indirect reports to see how they're doing. Leading your leader, involves, again, getting out there, having observations, having conversations, but make sure that you tell your leader you're not out there to spy on them. You're really trying to build trust with the greater team. You're really trying to take the temperature of the greater team and promise your leader that you will provide and share any feedback that you get, good or bad. So we're going to dive into 5 key competencies or areas that are critical for leaders to master. And these aren't advanced things. We're not going to talk today about how you can, make sure your leaders are innovative or, doing business combinations or, spotting ROI trends. I'm not going to get fancy on us today. We're going to cover the key things that you want to make sure your leaders are mastering. First one is assessing and improving performance. That's really important, obviously, for a leader to be able to do well. They need to set expectations well. That's the very start of it, right? What's the expectation for their team and their team members? They need to be good at differentiating performance. A lot of, especially new leaders, get a little shy about this. Okay, everybody's meeting expectation. They all get a 3. No, that's not good, right? People are different. They need to be differentiated. They also need to be objective, fair, and clear in their performance feedback and share relevant, helpful examples. And they need to get good at those uncomfortable conversations. They don't have to like them. Most of us don't like being uncomfortable, but we do need to develop some skill so that when we get into those tough conversations, we have that muscle memory to fall back on and we're still good at them. And then we also want to make sure our leaders link reward and recognition to performance. Sometimes leaders get shy about that too. Well, I'll tell them that they're not meeting expectations, but I still want to give them the full merit increase. I don't know, what kind of message does that send, right? We need to be consistent. So one of the hardest aspects of performance feedback is that giving information when people aren't meeting expectations. But avoidance never works. We know this. We can't help our folks get better if we don't tell them what's going on. So sometimes we have low dominance leaders. If you're using PI, you will be able to know that because you'll be able to assess that. But you may guess, right? So you may guess if somebody's lower dominance, if they're more accommodating, they're more team oriented. And, those folks may struggle. It could be because giving that bad feedback, or not bad feedback, but the difficult feedback, right? Feedback about bad performance or missed opportunities, that can feel like conflict, right? So your job is to help that leader see it as something else more positive, right? Hey, think about the end result here. You're helping this person get better to avoid that behavior in the first place, right? You want to help your leader give that difficult feedback in a helpful, caring way, while also being taken seriously. A lot of new leaders want to be friends with their employees, or at least good acquaintances, but that's not their role, right? They're a business leader, and they need to be okay delivering difficult news. Providing clear examples too, you want to make sure your leaders are doing that, both good and bad, right? So and make sure they're doing it proximate to the moment. Your employee leader sees one of their employees doing something right, tell them right away, right? Or doing something, missing something, tell them right away, right? When it's a convenient time and a private time for them to have that conversation. That's when it's most meaningful and helpful. Not saving things up for the year-end performance review surprise. We don't want that. We also want your leaders to be good at giving good feedback, right, for great work. We don't want them diminishing our high performer because they're threatened. And that can happen sometimes too. Or worse yet, claiming credit for that employee's work. Coaching and developing. Just like you are wanting to get better at this, they need to as well, your leaders that report to you. Their primary focus should be this, right? Coaching and developing their team. That's why they're there. That's what they're there to do. Sure, we all have to roll up our sleeves and, get out the laundry too, and they're going to need to do that too, but their primary focus should be on coaching and developing and empowering their direct reports. And in order to do this, their direct reports are going to need to make some mistakes, right? They're learning new things. They're being coached on new skills. So your leader needs to learn about mistakes and the fact that, some are good, some are acceptable. And it's important, especially when people are learning. Many employees, especially high-performing employees, want to discover the key to their own success, right? They don't want you doing it for them. So your employee leader can help, right? They can put gas in their employee's tank. They can provide them a map, but they cannot drive, right? If the leader is driving the bus, the employee will never figure out how to get where they're going on their own. So it's okay to let an employee or a leader let a direct report take a wrong turn. That's part of figuring out where they're going. But you don't want the leader to let their employee drive off a cliff, right? So you're going to have to help them learn how to give employees low-risk choices, right? Where they can get lost a little bit, but it's not going to be a big deal. Focusing on strategy is a key thing that leaders need to do. They need to understand the business needs and the linkage to what they do and what their team does. And they need to paint that picture for their team in a compelling way. And at the same time, they need to be looking at what's the work we do and is it in alignment with that strategy? Or if there are things we need to stop doing that no longer support the strategy. Oftentimes, first level leaders, they're so used to just being in the get out the laundry role that they keep doing that. And they forget to back up and look at the bigger picture. So measuring how well they do that is another key role that you have. Hiring and selecting team members is obviously very critical and takes a lot of time to get good at. If you have PI, it helps, right? Because you get a lot of information about potential applicants that you wouldn't normally know. But success in hiring folks looks like having high standards. Good leaders that know how to hire the right people are patient in terms of talent. They don't just take the next warm body that comes along out of fear, right? It's no, you know that a high performer is going to outperform a moderate performer 4 times over. So let's wait for that person, right? Also, good leaders aren't threatened by excellence. The more talented, the better, right? If your team shines, you're going to shine too. And so helping your leader understand that is really helpful. I had a leader that reported into me, and they were really having a tough time filling a particular role. And so I dug into why. And I'm like, you seem to be getting a lot of applicants. Can we take a look at some resumes together? And that leader looked at me and said, well, this person, they're just so overqualified. They interviewed well and everything, but I can't, they're just so overqualified. Mm-hmm. So I dug into it a little bit with them and I said, what do you mean by that? And what we found out was this person was definitely very qualified, and it did cause that person to feel a little bit concerned about how are they going to lead that person, right? They're so knowledgeable, so experienced, but what that leader needed was just a little bit of reassurance. You're still a good leader. You're going to teach that person lots of things that they maybe don't know. Sure, they have a lot of great technical knowledge, but you've got a lot of strengths as well, and they're going to learn from you too. And it's okay to learn from your direct reports. That's also great growth. Delegation and following up. Successful leaders have sufficient time for leadership, right? They delegate the stuff that they used to do when they weren't a leader. Now it's time to lead. So now it's time to delegate appropriately. And not just the administrative stuff, not just the icky stuff that the leader doesn't want to do, right? We need our leaders to develop their team members. And that means not only giving away some of the technical stuff that made them successful to begin with, but also giving up some of those decision-making skills, right? How is the next generation of leadership going to learn if they don't get put in those opportunities to make those decisions or those challenging opportunities that stretch them? Really good leaders also follow up, make sure people are doing things well, but they do it in a way that's not micromanaging, right? They look for the outcomes. They don't critique all of the methods. They just look, are you getting the outcomes that we talked about? And are you being successful in that way? So here we have a couple of examples. We have Angie with low formality. Formality is one of the things that the predictive index measures. But you can spot it. If somebody is low formal, they're going to be informal socially. They're going to find ways to work around the rules. They're not going to be terribly rules oriented. They're also going to be pretty comfortable going with the flow, being spontaneous. They're going to love starting things, but not necessarily finishing them. And they're going to be more big picture, right? We also have another leader here, Maria. She's high formality, and you can spot that pretty easily too, or you can measure it using PI. But she has a lot of attention to detail. Precision is her friend, right? Things got to be pretty perfect for her. She likes structure, and the reason she does is because it helps her get things exactly right. She produces quality, detailed work and is known for that. And she thrives under clear expectations. Those are strengths. All of these things are strengths. They're different, right? But they're all strengths. And so you want to play to those when you're working with these two very, very different leaders. And leaders are going to lead with their strengths, right? Angie's going to be great at presenting strategy, understanding how the business needs link to her team and what they produce. Maria is going to be great at providing structure and detail to her team and turning out a quality product. Angie, when it comes to delegation, however, she's going to love delegating details. She doesn't really care for those, right? Some of the hands-on stuff, here, you can have it, right? She's going to be good at doing that. She, however, likes authority. She's also high dominance, and so She's going to want to make all of the decisions. She's going to have to learn how to give some of those up. The other thing about Angie is because she's more big picture, she's going to not give as much structure as perhaps some of her employees need. Some of her employees who look more like Maria, perhaps. So maybe she's never going to be good at that, and maybe she needs to elicit the employee in that process, right? Hey, tell me about some of the structure and details so I can better guide you, right? What do you need? Maria, on the other hand, she is not going to want to give up the details until she has full trust that you're going to do it absolutely right. She has a very high standard for quality and perfection. And when she does tell somebody how to do something, she has the exact right way, right? So she's going to be reluctant to let people figure things out on their own, which is a muscle they need to develop. So for her, it's a matter of coaching her to back off a little bit on some of those details. Yeah, they're helpful, but there are many ways to get from A to Z. You don't have to go through all of the letters. So the other thing you're going to struggle with Maria is she is, going to struggle with trusting people to be as accurate as she is. So allowing people to make mistakes is going to be tough for her. But you can guide her on, hey, let's look at some low impact areas to test this person and get them good at that accuracy until we put them onto a high risk project. So before you step into that coaching role, it's important you develop the trust with that employee. If you can, if you have time and the luxury of time to do that. And you want to be, in that area of trust and vulnerability. Using PI can speed up that process. We have tools that help you understand what makes that person tick, understand the best management strategy for that person. So use whatever skills and tools you have to get to know that person as well as you can to speed up that process so that you can begin coaching. You want to facilitate the ownership of development, right? It's all on them to come up with their development so that they learn better and more effectively. Again, avoiding the fix-it mentality. It's really, really sometimes tempting to jump in there and fix it, but that doesn't really help. Sometimes you have to if it's a crisis. There will be those situations, but where you have time to let them figure it out themselves, that is the much better way to go about it. So you want to, again, observe your employee, take the time to do that so you can discuss your observations and expectations with them. And you want to ask good coaching questions. Those are those open-ended questions that help your leader/employee figure out the answer to their own problem, right? So that they remember it better, they learn it better, and it's their idea. And then you want to communicate the benefit and the value of that behavior change. Again, if you know their PI, you'll know what their motivating needs are. And you're going to want to link what motivates them to the value of that change. That provides them that reason to do it and helps them figure out how to capitalize on the strengths that they have. All right, so here's the coaching form itself. Looks like this, pretty plain and straightforward. You're going to want to pick a category. Don't coach people on multiple things at once. That's too much. So pick a category. Why are we doing this, right? And what's the goal? Where are we going with this conversation? What are your observations? Make sure you jot those down in advance of the session and you're very clear on them. And then write down some coaching questions. Be ready with those questions. This part here, the acting, this is where you hand over the ownership to your leader. This is where they do the talking. They talk about what steps they can take to perhaps have a better approach to things, a different outcome, a different skill. So here's what it would look like. We have Tom here, we're trying to advance his skill on delegation and follow-up. He's got some issues, right? He can delegate details, but he doesn't want to give up control. He tends to give delegation to the same team member, right? There's a trust issue here, right? Maybe he has high formality. There's one team member he trusts. We don't know. We're just going to tell him what the observation is and then hear what he has to say. But that could be, right? So we have some good questions to get the thinking started, and then we can capture his ideas.
Yeah, we do have a question on that kind of last concept there from Mike. He's asking what a good first step for leaders to try who are struggling with delegating tasks and decision making.
So a good first step for a leader who is struggling with delegating tasks is to think about what they are doing that's taking up their time that they don't really need to be the one doing, right? How are they, what are their employees there for? Help them pick just a few things that they're doing because they've always done it. And also help them build trust with their team, because they may have high formality and they may be concerned about their team being able to do it accurately. And so again, it's the training wheels on trust. Give the employee a low risk opportunity to demonstrate their ability, help them get better, and then give them more and more, higher risk things until, as they master each step, right? Delegation doesn't mean just dumping something on somebody and then feeling bad when it doesn't work out. And also struggling with decision making, that one I would have to dig into the leader's thinking a little bit. So that coaching may just be a lot of open-ended questions to identify the issue behind their decision making. It could be a lot of different things that you're going to need to coach them on. Make sense?
He said, thank you. And it makes sense. So perfect. Excellent.
Good.
Thank you, Gail. And thank you, Mike.
All right. So you've done your coaching. Do you walk away and just say, done? Nope. You want to make sure it's working, right? Did it resonate? Is the leader owning the coaching? And these are some questions you would follow up with later, perhaps, when you have a follow-up one-on-one, right? Did you change your approach? If so, did you have a different result? What was it? Was it an easy or difficult change? Do you need some practice? How can I help you? Is there another time that you used your new approach, and how did that go, right? Just kind of tell. You can dig into these with some behavioral questions and find out. You can also validate through your skip levels, engagement surveys, and observation. How well is this person mastering this new skill? And of course, you can always ask around. How are they doing? Ask some open-ended questions of people who work with them. Let them know this is only to benefit them. All right. In conclusion, you have some coaching prep forms that you're going to get following this session. And we're going to send you a library of coaching questions on different subjects, which is just great to get the thinking flowing and to give you some examples. Also, remember to use your direct reports predictive index behavioral report. We have a section in there on management strategies at the very end of the report that will help you remember what your direct report needs. Everyone is different. And we also have a workshop that specializes in coaching for accelerated performance, 2-day workshop in person or 5 partial days virtual, that really gets you well tuned to coach, be the best coach, and know what you're doing. So if you feel like you want to invest in that, just go to mindwiregroup.com workshops, and it's there for you. Thank you very much for attending today. We hope to see you in September when we are going to talk about leveraging your strengths in sales.